Hey Facebook friends, it's Lyndsey tuning into you live from Brisbane. We have got a storm brewing outside today, and we've had one of those warnings come through from the Met office saying that we've got hail on the way. So don't quite know what that's going to look like over the next little while. So if I lose the connection here, you'll know why. So I'll just give you the heads up for that. As you're jumping on live, shout out hello, let me know where you're tuning in from. Hey Justine. Always love to know, Monica, how are you? Always love to know where you're watching from. So feel free, share in the comments below. Tamara, great to have you on this live again today. Love, just drop a little note in the comments section. Where are you tuning in from? Jessica, great for you to be here. As always, love, love, love connecting. Justina, Brizzy girl. Hey, me too. Maybe just down the road. Hey, Denise, Gold Coast. Yay, good old Goldie. Are you having storms down there, Denise, or is it a little more north of you? We've had some doozies here. My daughter Chloe was over in Redcliffe earlier today, and she said that had an enormous amount of hail over there, but we seem to have missed it so far here. Fingers crossed. Tamara, Perth, awesome, awesome. Helen, hey, how are you? Lovely to see you here on the call. Hey, look, I wanted to pop on and just talk a little bit today about the secret to personal transformation. Now, some of you may be aware that a number of years ago, I was in a bit of a pickle, almighty mess, was coming out the other side of a massive gambling addiction that saw me $250,000 in debt, 25 kilos overweight, drinking bottles of wine each day and smoking like a chimney. So you could say that, and that was in 2003, so 15 years ago, was in a pretty ordinary place. Came and went, Denise, okay, hope we have the same here too, hey. So I was in a pretty ordinary place all those years ago, and so I often have people say to me, Lyndsey, what was the secret to transformation? Because my life is completely different to what it was way back then. And I've gone from really struggling to get out of bed in the morning, not liking myself, not liking my life, in a real rut, if you can call it that, completely broke and struggling, really struggling emotionally, physically, financially, every which way. And so I get asked this quite frequently. And so I thought today that I'd tune in and maybe just give you what I class to be my absolute number one secret. And it's a distinction that I made a number of years ago. And it may help you today, especially if you're someone who is super committed to your personal growth. If you love personal development, give me a thumbs up, share some love if you love personal development. If you see yourself as someone who invests in yourself, if personal development is something that you absolutely love and you're committed to, share the love, let me know that that's you, because I think what I'm about to share here with you today could be very useful for you and might just save you a few dollars and support that path of progression for you or help you to move more quickly. Hey, Shannon, great to see you. And might just help you. Karen, really lovely to see you on the call too. So just wanted to share with you something that I think might be useful for you. And it's something that very few people who are in the personal development space, especially those who are generating income and money from the personal development space, may ever tell you. So I figured that it could be useful for you all today if I kind of shine a light on that. And it's one really simple thing. And you see, years ago when I was coming out of that really horrible place, I made a decision that I wanted my life to be different. So tip number one is for personal change, for transformation to occur, you need to come to a decision that you want your life to be better than it is right now. And I'm talking about a really definite decision, the kind of decision that you unwaver with. Not the kind that you frivolously just throw out there and say, hey, I'm going to start going to the gym, or hey, I'm going to stop drinking wine, or you know what, I might do this. It's not that kind of decision. It's a sort of decision that very often comes from a tipping point moment. It often comes from a moment of having had enough. In fact, I'm currently writing a book about it. It's called Enough is Enough, and it's talking about and talking through some of those defining moments where you really hit rock bottom, or some type of threshold where you just won't tolerate anymore, where you reach that point where you simply will not settle for your life being as it is right now. And that was me in 2003 when I made the decision to quit gambling. And so I started on a pathway of really actively looking for resources, events, books, podcasts, webinars, coaches, mentors, you name it, I went searching for it to help me to move forward. And it's possible that, like many other people, I fell into a trap that I was completely unaware of. And it was the trap of this. It was the idea that personal development was my ticket to freedom. That by learning and growing, attending events, listening to podcasts, reading books, doing all that stuff would help me move from where I was to where I want to be. Now, for some of you, you might think, well, of course, Lyndsey, that's what you've got to do. And it is to a degree, but I want to share with you today, if I may, a distinction that I think is quite important to get, and one that really saved me a lot of money years ago, and one that caused me to go on a personal development fast, in fact. So I completely removed myself from being in that personal development space, and I did something quite different, and it's what I want to share with you today. Because what I'm hearing in the conversations that I'm having with people who I coach on a regular basis is that they are doing personal development. They are doing personal development. Now, give me a shout out right now if you are doing personal development, or you can relate to that. Give me a thumbs up or share a like or a love or something of that nature if you are doing personal development right now. And you see, in the early stages when I stopped gambling, I thought I was doing personal development, right? I was going to events, I was tuning into webinars, I was reading books, I had a mentor, I was doing all of that stuff. And it's possible you may be doing all of that stuff too. But I'll be frank and say that I was getting a little frustrated because I felt that I was doing a lot of personal development, but I didn't feel like I was making much progress. And it was a really slow path. And I had invested a lot of money. And in fact, I kind of did a bit of a recount maybe 6 months or so ago, and I realized that over the last 15 years, I've invested over $150,000 in my personal development. So I'm used to putting my hand in my pocket and paying to learn, to evolve, and do all of that kind of stuff. And hey, you probably do too, right? And I was led to believe that that was the path forward. If I wanted to grow and evolve, if I wanted to transform my life, I needed to invest in myself and do all this stuff, which I did. But I made one key distinction that was after having spent tens of thousands of dollars, and that's this. The acquisition of knowledge is very different to personal transformation and personal development. And I'll say that again. The acquisition of knowledge is very different to personal development, or as I like to call it, personal transformation. And what I see so often today, and what I hear in conversations with people, is they are investing a lot of money in personal development. They're investing a lot of time in personal development. They're spending lots of time on podcasts and reading books and attending events and doing all of that type of stuff, but they're not making much progress because their interpretation of personal development is that they need to do the events, the podcasts, etc. So they're tuning into all of that material, but what they're doing is they're acquiring knowledge. Now, I was led to believe that so long as I kept going to events, so long as I kept reading lots of books and I kept doing all that stuff, that my life would somehow transform. And it's funny because I had a coaching conversation when I was at one of Tony Robbins' events many years ago. I think it was in 2006, so 12 years ago. And it's been a recording that's been watched by hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And so Each week I get emails, Facebook messages from people asking me one specific question, and that question is always something similar to this, and that is, if I go to this event, will I get the same outcome as you? If I purchase this program, will I get the same outcome as you? If I read this book, will I get that same outcome? And what I came to learn back then, and which I remind myself of every day, is that when we go to events, when we tune into podcasts, when we listen to webinars, when we're on a coaching call with a mentor, what we gain in those moments often is knowledge, information. And if we're really fortunate in that space, we have a moment of personal insight, a moment of personal insight. And it's a moment where we get gifted a fresh perspective. If in that event we're open to seeing things anew, and if we're committed to the path forward, and if we've made a decision that we won't settle for what we have in life anymore and we want it to be different, when we come to these events, these learning opportunities with that type of mindset, then sometimes what happens is you'll hear something or you'll learn something that gives you this fresh perspective, this moment of insight. Now, over the years, as I say, I've spent in excess of 150, hey Deb, thanks gorgeous, over the 15-year period, invested more than 150K in my personal development, going to events, doing all that stuff. And each time I've gone, I've had multiple moments of insight, and it's kind of like, I see it like a sliding door moment. We have this moment where the presenter at the event, or the coach, the mentor, the author of a book, whatever it is, it's like they trigger something in us that opens a sliding door where we can see something we haven't seen before, where we get an opportunity to hear something we haven't heard before. Or if we have, this time round, we're open to hearing it anew or seeing it anew, and it touches us deeply. And it gives us this moment of awakening, or a personal insight, or an aha moment. We call it a number of different things. And, you know, you might call it a moment of insight, an aha moment, whatever you specifically call that. But we've all had those moments, right? I'm sure I'm not the only person that's been to an event. And, you know, I'm sure right now, if you were to think about it, there's been a moment where you've had this personal insight. And so when you have that personal insight moment, it's what you decide to do with what you see, feel, hear, witness in that moment that becomes transformational for you. It's not the event, it's not the learning, it's not the knowledge, it's none of that transforms your life. It's what you do with what you're feeling, seeing, hearing, noticing in that moment. And what I've come to appreciate over the years is I've been to many, many events, like outstanding events. And like many of you that are here right now tuning in, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars attending events. And I've had those sliding door moments. I've had those moments of insight. And I've thought in that event environment, oh my gosh, I'm so going to do that when I get home. Or, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. It feels like that in the moment, right? I've loved the environment that I'm in. It's been uplifting. It's been mesmerizing. It's felt good. And so often when we go to those events, we have an opportunity to buy a ticket to another event at those events, which I've done multiple times too, as I'm sure you have. And I noticed many years ago, I was kind of like an event junkie, I guess you could say. I almost became addicted to the acquisition of knowledge in those types of environments because it was so uplifting and I felt so good in them. And then I remember one time I'd gone to crew at an event, and I realized that many of the people around me had fallen into the same trap that I had and had become really, really addicted to the environment that's created in those learning spaces, and not so much to the applying of the application of what it is that they were learning. And I saw in myself and many others that it was almost like we were just treading water. We were going back to event after event after event, and don't get me wrong, it was fantastic. It was a bunch of fun. It was really awesome. I met some incredible people, yet my life really wasn't transforming in any way, shape or form. And it wasn't until I really got this whole idea that personal development is not the acquisition of knowledge. I'd really fallen into that trap because that's almost what we're led to believe. And if you think about it, when we go to school, in our school days, we go to school, we learn all this stuff, we get tested on the stuff, and then we get graded on the stuff that we've learned. And it's based on our ability to regurgitate the information that we get graded on, right? We get an A or an A plus or a C or a D or a B, whatever it is. We get tested on our acquisition of knowledge and the way in which we're able to recite back that knowledge, and in the way we're able to make sense of that knowledge, not necessarily in a practical way, but rather in a repeating the knowledge kind of way. And when it comes to personal transformation, it is very much about how we apply what we learn to our life as we're applying it. And so I wanted to share that today because I can see so many people falling into the trap of spending copious quantities of money thinking that that next thing they're going to learn will transform their life. And maybe like me, the greatest gift you could give yourself right now is to go on an acquisition of knowledge fast, a knowledge fast. And I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I did that many years ago, and I just stopped reading books, I stopped going to events, I stopped tuning into podcasts, I stopped being mentored by anyone. And I just made the decision to start applying that which I had learnt over the years, but was sitting in piles of notebooks having been to events, but I really hadn't done anything with them. I just stashed all of this information away, felt good about acquiring that knowledge, but it wasn't changing my life. And so I encourage you, as you're tuning into this today, to give thought to, are you applying what you're learning, or is it possible that you may have become addicted to the acquisition of knowledge and the comfort of having filled your mind with knowledge, and perhaps maybe like me, you've mistaken the acquisition of knowledge for personal development. And do you know, it's interesting because if I ever have a moment where I feel I'm looking to move forward in some way and I'm not quite sure what that path is, I can still these days fall into the trap of jumping on Amazon and buying half a dozen books. And they're books that chances are I'll never open, I'll never read, I'll never do anything with. But in that moment of doubt, in that moment of looking for a path forward, it feels good to acquire more knowledge rather than to apply what I already know, what I've already paid thousands of dollars to learn, but maybe haven't fully done this yet. I totally get it, Shelby, myself too, right? And it's such an easy trap to fall into. And it's interesting because I never finished school, so I don't have a degree. I don't have any of that kind of stuff. I don't have, things on my wall that say, I get you, Natasha. I don't have anything on my wall that says I've got a master's in anything. And for me, the personal development space was almost how I could redeem myself. It was almost like, well, I don't have that academic knowledge, so I'll just immerse myself in the personal development world. I'll learn as much as I possibly can, and that will somehow fill the void and fill the gap and make me enough, right? So it's an interesting trap that we fall into. And do you know, much of this is actually not your fault. It's not my fault because we're rewarded consistently for going into those environments. So it really conditions us to believe that it's exactly where we need to be. And it's a bit like, yeah, Denise, it is a bit like that. It's a bit like sugar. Do you know, you eat enough sugar, you want to eat more sugar. Denise, exactly. You learn something and then you build a desire to learn more and more and more and more. And before you know it, you're on this treadmill of learning, but your life's not transforming. And so for me, I really got that understanding that the purpose of tuning into events, the purpose of reading books, the purpose of doing all of that for me and potentially for you as well is to make a shift in some area of your life, is to transform an area of life, something in your life right now that is, if there's an area of your life you don't like how it's looking, then chances are you don't need to read another book, go to another event, tune into another podcast. You don't need to do any of that. Chances are all you need to do is make the decision to raise your standards, make a conscious decision to raise your standards, not settle for any less, but raise your standards and make the decision to start applying, implementing what it is that you've already learnt. And it's when you start to go to that space of implementing what you've learned and holding yourself accountable to that, like really committing to the process of that, that's when you start to see transformation occur. Now, I want to flag it and say there is no quick fix. Now, I don't want to be the downer. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, yet I do want to keep it super real for you here today. And that is, there is no magic wand. There is no magic fairy dust. There is no special magic process. There's no magical anything that's going to move you from where you are to where you want to be on a permanent, consistent growth basis. There are things that will give you a short fix, a short-term fix. But what will help that continual growth and evolution is your commitment to it. It's you showing up every single day, expecting more of yourself from a place of love and respect, knowing that there are days you're going to fall short, knowing that there are days you won't excel, and loving yourself anyway on those days. That's what's going to help you to move forward. Now, on the 31st of December last year, I made the decision to quit alcohol. Now, I know there are many people out there who made some decisions on the 31st of December to do some stuff, who at that moment were intentional in that. They really wanted to do it, but they fell off the wagon because they thought it would be easy. Now, I can proudly share with you, not a drop of alcohol has passed my lips since the 31st of December. And the only reason I'm able to commit to that is I get there's no quick fix. I get that there are going to be days it's uncomfortable. I get that the path to where I want to be is one of consistency and a commitment to raise my standards and hold myself accountable to doing the do each day. And so I've created a group, it's called Evolve with Lyndsey. And if you want to kind of join a community of incredible humans who are committed to raising their standards and being an even better version of themselves, then I invite you to join. So if you just do a little Facebook search, I think, and go Evolve with Lyndsey, you'll see the group there. And in that space, I share various different things each week and share some of these lifestyle hacks that can help you to implement what it is that you're learning. And together, I believe that if we really truly understand that this path of growth is one of consistency, it's going to be ups and downs. There are going to be days we rock it. There are going to be days we crash and burn. But if we love ourselves enough and we commit to the process, we will move toward where we want to be. And I look at my life in 2013, I was on Skid Row. It wasn't a fun place to be. And I look at my life today and they are poles apart. And the reason they are completely different is because of my consistency to keep doing doing the work, committing to the work. And it's not easy and it's not always fun, but I can tell you what, it is way more rewarding than the quick fix you'll get of consistently chasing information and looking to acquire more and more knowledge. It is much more rewarding to apply what you're learning than it is to keep going out looking for the next quick fix, only to become bitterly disappointed and find yourself where you've always been, feeling like you're not making any progress and digging into your wallet and paying out a ton more money, but you're not moving in the direction that you want to be moving. Now, I know I'm not the only person who's been in this position, and I can see totally, I understand Natasha, right? 4 weeks where I've been reading and going for days on end and hating because we've been vulnerable. Yeah, totally, right? Interesting interesting, Natasha, I did a little post on vulnerability, I think, here the other day, speaking about vulnerability, because it takes a strong human to give themselves permission to be vulnerable. And knowing that, you know, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And I mean, that could be another live totally, and I might do that for you later in the week. But, you know, right now, I just want to help you to understand the difference between the acquisition of knowledge and personal transformation or personal development. And personal development, for the majority of people I've spoken to over the years, myself included, is about transforming an area of life. It's about that commitment to raise our standards and to become the best version of ourselves we can be. Now, again, no quick fix, no magic potion, no fast anything. Despite what marketers will tell you, there is no quick fix. Trust me on this. I have searched high and low looking for the fast thing. There is no fast thing. There is no fast thing that's sustainable. What is sustainable is your commitment to constant evolution. What's sustainable is your commitment to each and every day become a little bit of a better version of yourself. Loving yourself on the days where you fall short, because it happens. There are days you're going to fall short, and it's not being disappointed on those days, but giving yourself a big high five and loving yourself enough to praise yourself and understand the humanness of the journey rather than looking for this fast fix. So I hope that that's maybe useful for you today. I felt really kind of passionate about sharing this with you today. And if it's useful for you to become part of a community that is committed to growing and evolving, a part of a community that will walk that journey with you, then Evolve with Lyndsey may be that space. Now, I'm going to tell you up front, I'm not infallible. I make a lot of mistakes along the way. I'm willing to be vulnerable on that journey. So too are the beautiful souls that are in that group, because we know that it's in our vulnerability that our ultimate strength lies, and it's in our ability to share the journey that it makes it so much easier for ourselves and for others, because journeying together is what makes it so much easier. Natasha, totally, I get you, darling. I said, you don't know what you don't know. Absolutely, Denise. And if that's kind of interesting for you, in a couple of days, I'll share something that kind of expands that out and will help to make sense of it all. But I'd love to see you in that group if that would be of value for you. So remember, takeaway message from this today, the acquisition of knowledge is not personal development. It's maybe part of the process, but the biggest part of it is the application of what it is that you're learning. It's when you get that personal insight, that sliding door moment, that moment where you get to witness something you can do that will transform your life. It's that moment where you have an aha moment. The moment of insight is what I like to call it. You have that moment and you commit to doing something different and you follow through. That's what begins to transform your life. And it's the compounding effect of those moments that ultimately gets you from where you are to where you want to be. It's the compounding effect of those moments. It's your willingness to lean in and to constantly apply that. That's what supports that transformation for you. So I look forward to sharing more with you. If you want to hang a little bit more in that private Facebook group called Evolve with Lyndsey, go check it out now. We've got some great content in there. Join the community of like-minded souls who, like you, are committed to their evolution. And I look forward to sharing a little bit more with you in the coming days. So have a beautiful day, night, wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Bye for now.